Hey everyone, we're back on another AI conversation, and today I'm happy to be joined by a longtime collaborator and colleague in AAP. Of course, everyone knows Mr. Sherwin Pelayo. Doesn't need any introduction. Hi, Sherwin. Welcome to Conversation.
Thank you very much, Doc. This has been a long time happening, no? Ang tagal na nating plinano to, but I think we've had really so many things that we're
Very busy.
doing, within AAP.
Yeah.
So I think we only found time, today to have this, conversations. And
Yeah,
thank you for having me, Doc.
yeah, it feels like alam mo yung planetary alignment. Kasi we're orbiting generally the same thing, pero minsan lang tayo nagtutugma sa oras.
Correct.
Yeah, anyway, at least now we're
Right.
here, no?
Mm.
Okay, so we've been talking offline and many other occasions about the topic of skills. I think that's one of the first things we actually started working on together, no?
And exactly, right.
Even when we were forming AAP. So
Yeah.
maybe give us an update. So what's up with that right now? What are you doing in that sector? And let's talk about it.
Sige. So, let me backtrack a bit. No? As you said, even before we really started AAP, when we were having those conferences back in 2016, and before we were formally registered in SEC in 2018, one of the very first things that we really agreed amongst all of us co-founders is that we need to identify the data roles and the competencies on each role. We need to be very clear on a professional maturity model. We didn't even call it then a professional maturity model. I think that the biggest kind of impetus for us back then was this problematic Davenport article, data science as the sexiest job of the 21st
2012.
century, di ba? 2012 yan. And it kind of threw a wrench in all of the things that we were doing kasi we were really focused on differentiating the job roles, the data roles, and then identifying the specific competencies that go with each particular role, which leads into a different career path. So if you recall, in 2017, that's why we were fortunate enough to join that APEC project there, or
Yeah.
Data Analytics Raising Employment in
Is
Singapore.
that there or Edison? Or those are
It's
two different
there.
things?
Okay,
Ano?
yeah.
Tama,
So
tama.
in Project There, Data Analytics Raising Employment, we reference two projects: Europe's Project Edison and North America's project done by Business for Higher Education Foundation, or BHEF. The goal of the project was to look at the best practices in Europe and North America and see what are the competencies that we can come up with for the APEC region. So during the time, it said, okay, it was very aligned to what we wanted to do. So we joined that project in Singapore. That was a 2-day, kind of workshop. We came up with the 10 analytics competencies. So it's ranging from the 4 business domain, yung domain skills understanding, operational analytics, data visualization, to the technical skills like data engineering, research methods, statistical techniques, and then of course your 21st century skills. But the challenge with Project There is that it only offered those 10 competencies. Wala yung definition of, okay, what are the data roles? They're assuming that all data professionals would need all of these competencies at all proficiency levels.
Which
So
is
even
obviously not true, right?
Correct, right. Because there are data roles that are not technical, but they're more domain or business skills. And then there are the more technical one, like the data scientists and the data engineers that would really need to have more technical skills, compared to your data steward or your data analyst. So we kind of expanded that, to include, the data roles, and we kind of distributed the proficiency level of those competencies into what we now call the version 1 of the professional maturity model.
PMM, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And at that time, in
And
2017...
that created the AAP, basically, I think.
It did, yeah. So, kumbaga, it was really our very first kind of offering to say to the public and even to our members. At the time kasi the universities and academic institutions were kind of trying to look for, okay, data science. Okay, what are we going to do with this? What are the
Mm.
learning outcomes of a data scientist? So we had one of our very first workshops on the use of our professional maturity model. I believe that was in 2019 at UP Diliman, where several academic institutions participated because they were trying to look into how can they develop an undergraduate program for data science.
Right.
So initially pala, I mean, during the first, few hours of that workshop, we kind of disabused them with the idea, and hey, you, you're not just going to have to build an undergraduate program for data science, but you also need to look at these various roles because
Sure.
it's going to be different. So we introduced to them the various data roles, and then we started looking into how they can build curricula using the project their output and the professional maturity model as learning outcomes.
Yeah.
So we're kind of ahead in our time back then. The
Yeah.
discussions
No
on
one else is talking about it this way.
The
Yeah.
Philippine Skills Framework was not, being even discussed, I think, back then. But yun nga kasi, we really felt that it was important for us to start with an understanding of what are these data roles, what are these career paths, na ang isip pa rin mga tao, they should come from IT, di ba? And what are the competencies and skills needed by each of them. So that's 2017, and a lot has happened since then. Di ba? Based also on our labor market intelligence study, sabi natin na okay, yeah, these are still the five that are needed, but then we included now AI in our scope. So we need now to include a role for AI engineer. But then our labor market intelligence study stated that there seems to be a need to define roles for educators as well. So now we're looking into, say, creating a path for educators. And since you also want to develop yung research capabilities natin, so might as well include AI researcher as another career path.
Sure.
Okay. Analytics management, or say analytics and AI management, will kind of transform into being more of a product manager rather than a project manager, kasi we also want to develop mga entrepreneurs din naman on analytics and AI. Kasi again, we want to promote na okay, we're not just here to build employees, but we hope to build employers as well in the future. And I think, and the last naman din na tinitingnan natin with the framework is that data and AI for the masses, diba? Na parang regardless, I think believe naman din natin to from the very start, regardless of what your sector is, industry, you will have to deal with data. And now, even with AI, in order for you to secure your job, kasi what we're saying din, diba, naman, it's not AI that's going to displace the jobs. It's the people who know AI who's going to displace the people, in the current the current jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's been years since we started AEP, no? Easily
Yes.
5 years already. And then if you
Yes.
count the Edison and the Dare work, easily 7, 8 years, almost 10 years.
Right.
So what's obviously we had ideas that we thought would play out. So in your perspective, what were things that went according to expectation, and what were things that, I have a view then, but I want to hear it from you.
Right.
That didn't really match what we thought would happen, because we were all hoping that data science is the new sexy job, ganyan ganyan. It's been 2012, no? So almost more than 10 years since 2012. 11 years.
Yeah, 11 years. Yes.
We're not swimming with data scientists yet, or maybe actually we are, but not in the right places. Mamaya, I'll mention that, no. Pero so that didn't really end up the way we expected it to end up. Any thoughts on that, or how we?
Yeah. So, I mean, several things. I think we did have some success naman. I think even before we started it, And sorry sa mga nagja-job posting before yung mga 2017, 2018. We're kind of laughing na we're seeing a lot of job posts that you're cramming everything into one single position, di ba? One person. You're putting in okay, we need a data scientist. But then the skills, the competencies, the responsibilities, that's an entire analytics team that you're actually putting in a single job role. So when we kind of
So
released
bad
that,
expectations.
it was bad expectations,
Oh.
diba? And we were, I think there were, I mean, some of our members, were kind of early adopters there. When we kind of taught them, oh, ito yung professional maturity model, these are the distinctions. We were slowly seeing, back then, nag-iiba-iba na. There's now kind of a clear delineation between a data scientist versus a data engineer. Usually kasi yung dalawa yung pinagsasama-sama. I think it was also because of their experience na okay, sige, there are organizations that were hiring data scientists, and during the time there were mga people naman din talaga who were kind of very knowledgeable in the domain. They studied the programming and included all of the math and stats, so they can really do the data scientist job. So they were able to hire those people. The thing is, pagpasok nila doon sa organization, wala namang data. So frustrated yung mga data scientist na, okay, ano gagawin ko dito? So ang sinasabi ng mga employers, but we expect you to also collect and clean the data. Syempre, ayaw na kagad ng mga data scientist. Yon. So I think we had early successes din naman in differentiating the roles para clearer din yung expectations. That's why din naman we kind of created a different maturity model for organizations to really prepare them, to really acquire and, engage, retain, develop this talent. But that's another, a different discussion. Yung educating naman the organizations and the companies. But then, tama ka nga din, Doc, noon. So yes, nagiging clear na. So naging clear na, may differentiation na. Siyempre, ang need naman bigla ng mga organizations ay hindi ko naman kailangan ng mga entry level. I need people who are kind of experienced already.
Yep.
Kasi I have huge amounts of data. I have business problems that I want answered by data. I cannot do that with entry level skills.
Yeah, that's a good point kasi
Right.
what I've noticed recently, exactly what you're saying, is that there's actually a glut, meaning many people have taken their analytics training, their courses, even the ones we've trained, sa MABA and of course, the others. But they're not finding jobs, or at least they're struggling to find jobs, and that's the thing. Parang it's not the utopia that we would hope.
Right.
Yun yung medyo I don't know. And for me, it's bittersweet because
True.
we've both spent the last 10 years building the industry, and then now there's a bottleneck.
Right.
I don't know the full extent of it though. I'm still studying it. Pero I want to get into it. Okay, sige.
So
you
with
meant
that, Doc,
sige, go
I
ahead.
guess in that point lang, kasi I think two things. One is, even with now, ang focus kasi are on the technical skills.
Correct.
So focus ka doon, Python or SQL programming. If you're doing ETL, ang focus mo palagi are on the tools. The Informatica, Data Stage, Teradata, mga Microsoft SQL Server, which is good. I mean, you need to know the tools. But then, yun nga, there's a difference between skills versus competencies. Okay?
Yeah.
Kasi you need to know the foundations of those competencies of database programming, of extract, transform, load, of data warehousing, of data visualization. So that regardless kung anong technology yan or tool yan, kaya mong gawin. It's just a matter of learning the syntax of the new programming language. When we had this discussion with the startup, I think 2 weeks ago in one of our workshops, he was really looking for someone, say, an expert, say, in ETL, or an expert in, there's a data build tool, may mga DBTs na ngayon.
Yeah.
So sabi niya kailangan ko as a startup kailangan ko talaga ng expert. So may nakikita siya mga CVs pumapasok, ganyan. Several years in Informatica, several years in SSIS. Pero when he probed deeper into the fundamentals of ETL,
Wala.
hindi nasasagot.
You know, I find that a correlation with that with some work I'm doing now, no, with obviously a recent training provider that imploded. And I think I can generalize now na for analytics as well, the emphasis has been on the technical skills. Kasi nga, it's treated like an IT job. Yun na naman tayo.
Yeah,
So,
exactly, right.
I know SQL, I know Excel, Python, Power BI, tick, 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 tick. And then, I'll apply. And then I'll get rejected. Kasi nga, kasi I'm actually mentoring a small group of, yan, yung mga ganyan, yung mga nag-training pero struggling. And the first thing I broke to them is, you should not treat analytics as a tech job or a tech job only. It's actually closer to a research job inside a company. You produce insights. Sometimes it doesn't even matter what you use, no? May iba nag-R, iba nag-Excel. Unless you need to interact with the IT infrastructure ng company, maybe they require AWS or Azure. Pero it's not something you can't learn. I mean, you can easily Google that or understand that. Pero ang hinahanap talaga ng company, at least speaking from experience, is the mindset of the analyst. How do you break down a problem? How do you use data? How do you create experiments? So it has very, very strong correlations with academic research, pero not too theoretical naman. Kasi yun nga, you wanna get something out agad, something the marketing team can use, the finance team can use, operations can use. Pero the thought process is very similar. Kaya nga, ang dami mga academics din recently, past few years, that have already joined corporates, as a data scientist or as a data analyst. Nasa-stuck naman sila at the, I don't know what to call it, parang lack of rigor. Kumbaga, kasi kunyari, sa research, very important yung statistical significance, mga ganyan.
Exactly,
yung mga
right.
R-squared. No? Pero sa business, basta kumita, okay. Sometimes profitable strategies actually are random nga eh. And vice versa, something that's non-random actually sometimes doesn't make money. So that's a big culture shock, no? Okay, balik tayo dun sa, okay, you mentioned offline also that the attempt to now distill this into some sort of a skills framework for the Philippines, which is an augmenting, parang evolution na of what we've been doing sa AAP. Right. Can you talk a bit about that and ano yung naging root niyan and where are we now on that respect?
Okay, so this is really an initiative from the Department of Trade and Industry. So they also wanted to clearly define, very specific roles and competencies. So DTI had this agreement with Singapore, and I think this was during the previous administration that we are going to look into Skills Future Singapore as kind of a best practice on how we can develop our own skills framework here in the Philippines. So there are, I believe, 6 already competency skills framework that were developed, starting with supply chain and logistics. I think there's game development, animation, human resources as well. So that's part already. There's already skills framework defined for those. And then about I think last year or 2 years ago, DICT came into the picture, and they want to look into naman the IT competencies. So analytics and AI is going to be part of that, healthcare information management systems, contact center. Okay. So tinitingnan naman, that's now going to be kind of the project with DICT. We are still going to reference Skills Future Singapore, as a best practice. But for us in AAP, what we also are looking into are competency frameworks in Australia, through para may counterpart tayo doon called Future Skills Organization in Australia, and then we're looking also into that skills framework for the information age. So yung Sophia naman na
framework.
Framework. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. And the goal is to come up with some sort of standardization of definitions. Ganun din ba ulit
Right.
tayo?
Yeah.
Or
So I think yung what we've defined naman din kasi talaga na 5 roles, data roles. Well, one, that's it. I mean, those are just data roles. So we now need to include the AI roles as well. And then the 10 competencies that were defined in project there, they need to be redefined na, or we need to re-identify certain new competencies as well. The thing about skills frameworks din naman, or competency frameworks kasi, is that we need to have a level of abstraction so that it can be future ready.
Yeah.
If you look at the frameworks ngayon, especially the IT ones, it's not going to tell you specifically the technical skills, I mean the programming skills. It will probably list as an example, pero on at first glance, hindi mo makikita, or you need to know SQL or R or Python. It's abstracted to say database programming or data strategy
irrespective
or
of
data
the
design
irrespective of the tools.
the actual tools. Yes.
Mm-mm.
And ang even with project there, parang ayaw nila na sobrang dami nung competencies. It just needs to be right enough so that everyone who's going into these professions would know ano ba talagang kailangan kong malaman as far as competencies. Not just the technical skills, but also say, mga people skills, or even yung mga 21st century workplace skills on how I can really do my job. So nandun tayo ngayon sa process of looking into what's out there, Australia, Europe, and Singapore, to see what we can really contextually apply here for us in the
For
local
ourselves, no?
setting for ourselves. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. The other thing as well is adoption of the skills framework. So remember, kahit sa AAP nun, we've put out that PMM for a while, and yet we still see
Yes.
these weird job descriptions, no, out of the blue, no, how the way people advertise them. In your experience, kasi you've been more immersed, no, in the kind of the grassroots of this stuff. How are we different from the rest of the world in terms of appreciating it? Kasi surprisingly, as I mentioned, the people studying analytics want to get into the field, approach it the way an IT developer would. Oh, I need to learn React, I need to learn Python, I need to learn front end, back end. Ganon din sa analytics, bigla, I need to know Excel, I need to do SQL, I need to know and SQL, not necessarily ETL, just diba, parang a framework pa of on top of that tool, no? Na okay, I know you can write a query, but can you create an architecture? Yun din, that's very, very missing. And yun na nga, we have a glut of people at that level. Less than 2 years of experience or 0 years of experience. Lalo na yung mga career shifters. I think that what I'm noticing is a fresh grad has a better chance of getting a job than a career shifter.
Right.
Kasi parang pag fresh grad, companies are willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, okay, you don't know anything. We're willing to teach you. And we get you at a very low cost. Pero ang career shifter, syempre, may na-build up na na salary. Although a number of them actually want to take a pay cut just to get in. Fascinating. Pero yun na nga, they're flush with these technical skills. But either they can't relate it to their own existing domain knowledge. Kasi may iba dyan, engineers, they've done work in some other context, managers, but they can't relate it, no? Actually, we're picking up a number of them via the academic route. Nagma-masters sila. Pero masters obviously is not for everyone. There's a cost commitment, there's a time commitment. So I'm worried that this, whatever, for lack of a better word, this boot camp population, karamihan dyan nag-boot camp, are getting nowhere. And we both know this, the boot camp industry is growing, and it's monetizing, it's charging people right and left. So sila ang kumikita, pero the students are not. And I'm worried that eventually makaka-fatigue din yung market na, okay, ayoko na nga. I'm never gonna get that job anyway, so much for that, no? As opposed to Yung mga iba nag-VA na lang, virtual assistant,
Yes.
or they go some parallel work like digital marketing. I mean, also all very good work. Pero what we want is to build the analyst pool, no? And yun nga. And
Correct.
companies are not hiring them. Yun pa yung problema.
Correct. Oo. It's sa akin do kasi it's also I really don't like ganun talaga no, ganun kabigat. It's yung concept of upskilling versus reskilling.
Okay,
I'm all for
talk about that.
upskilling.
Yeah.
I'm all for upskilling. I really don't like the idea of reskilling.
Reskilling is start from
Kasi
scratch? Ganun ba yun? Or train
basically
from the
ganun eh.
ground
Or
up?
even career shifting.
Yeah.
Kasi yung when I think of reskilling kasi you're kind of shifting your career into something that is new.
Yeah.
If you look at it really just from a purely point of view na upskilling, I think we're going to make some headway there.
Yeah.
Yung idea kasi ng mga tao na analytics and itong ang AI is a totally different thing from what they're doing right now. That's causing them to think, okay, I need to reskill and I need to shift to a career in analytics and AI or shift my career into IT. When in fact, ang kailangan lang naman talaga nila is upskilling.
Parang
They
add
have
a little pepper
lang,
to
yan.
the
Parang
thing.
you have already the domain expertise, you
Pero
have the
wait,
experience.
can I
Go, go.
counteract
Sige,
that?
go.
Or hindi
Sige.
naman, more of nuance that. But is that a data analyst? Baka not. No? Baka that's some, I don't know, an analytics manager or something where you build on the stuff you already know, but you carry with these technical skills parang as an augmentation. But do we rely on those kind of people to do data analytics, parang grunt work? Or baka they're best, you know, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Baka
So,
tama yung method, pero yung target ang medyo sablay, no?
So, I'm thinking here of halimbawa yung mga HR specialist, HR analyst ng mga titles, or marketing specialist or marketing analyst yan. So they have, you know, they are proficient, they very well know about marketing and HR. It's more of you just want to upskill them to be more data driven.
Yeah.
Kasi parang in the past, I mean, yeah, they will look into data, but do they really allow, you know, further analysis to get more insights dun sa data and use that insights to drive their decisions?
Yeah.
So I think ganun, yun lang gusto ko din sanang i-focus natin. Those are really
legitimate
what we call mga functional
requirements.
analysts din talaga, di ba? Kasi they have the domain expertise. We just need to train them on how to become data driven. So we both coached, mentored mga masters, mga master students natin sa UANP. I had mentored some in AIM. And yung sa Masters of Science in Data Science sila. So palagi kung ganun ang question ko sa kanila simula. I had one who was into utilities, energy, electricity yan. Parang ganun ang focus niya. And he was an industrial engineer ba, mechanical engineer, or some one of those engineering. So sabi ko, bakit ka nag-data science? Kasi it's the in thing, bago. He wanted to shift daw his career into data science. So, anong plano mo? I mean, kakalimutan mo yung pinag-aralan mo ng 4 years sa college and nag-board exam ka pa to be a certified engineer. So, kakalimutan mo yun? Oo, parang gano'n. Very sure siya. Sabi, but you know that you can actually you stay in that same industry, you know, work with your expertise. You just need to augment your skills on data science. So during the during the course of our discussion, our mentoring session, na-realize na, oo nga, no? And diba? So parang, hindi mo sasayangan yung several years mo of, you know, undergrad and several years of working experience in this industry just to start from scratch and be a data scientist, diba?
Yeah. I was gonna say, then that hooks the situation. Parang the influence of the individual is maybe 30%, 70% to 80% is now the organization. In other words, you need to hook it to digital transformation. Kasi kung quite analog naman yung company, kahit na mag-upskill tong mga tao, what you might actually do is encourage attrition.
Yun
Kasi
din naman,
they'll
yes.
just jump out, I'll just go where my skills are valued. But those are
Exactly,
for people
exactly,
already within the company. Pero yung mga
exactly.
nagka-career shift, some of them actually have already left or are about to leave. And they see the analytics industry as a I guess a place to start afresh. And
Mm-mm.
if we go by the numbers of one training provider that recently imploded, 10,000 yun at least.
Correct.
And
True.
that's a chunk, no? If we use the APEC figure ng 200 to 300,000,
1,000.
that's 10,000 out of that 300,000. And there could
Right.
be more, no? So yun yung concern ko na, yun na nga. I think we may not necessarily have disagreement on the skills per se. Pero kasi we also have an organizational framework, di ba, sa
Yes,
AAP.
yes, yes.
Baka yun yung pressure. We're not moving labor demand fast enough kasi nga the companies are not transforming. And then
Oh,
on the broad, parang broader, parang macro standpoint, where do these people stand versus yung mga talagang pure, true blue or pure play data people, no, who came out of college with computer science, with statistics.
yes.
Syempre, they're gonna get the top picks, no.
Mm-hmm.
So, and AAP has been, in my view, focusing on that crowd. And then there's this broader crowd na ngayon who can willingly perform maybe and participate. They're not considered in that equation. I
Right,
might
right.
be exaggerating a bit, pero parang ganun yung lumalabas.
Oo, oo. So, like what you said, parang, and especially now, if more and more schools are, developing their undergraduate on data science, di ba? So, my fear is that we end up with what happened in the 80s na yung nursing, di ba? Biglang ang dami-daming schools na nag-offer ng nursing because there's potentially huge demands daw of nurses, during the time. So,
Yeah.
nag-produce, yung mga nurses natin nag-end up sa contact center.
Yeah.
Di ba?
Yeah.
So, we're probably going to end up, like what you said, a glut of very entry-level, data professionals, pero hindi din naman ma-hire. And then, on top of that, there are mga training providers na ang tinuturo talaga ay fundamentals.
Yeah.
Di ba? Na
Yeah.
itong technology skills lang. So, even if they have several years of experience already in a particular domain, it's like they're seeing themselves as starting from scratch.
From scratch,
So I
basically.
think, we need to do something naman dun sa yung middle natin na parang, okay, it's really just about augmenting your experience and skills with data skills, di ba?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can still continue with your career path.
I don't know nga. I used to liken this data thing or AI thing to internet or personal computing. Now, once upon a time, everyone has a yellow pad and there was one electric typewriter and another computer in the office na word star, no? Then the electric typewriter went away and then little by little, everyone had a computer on their desk. Okay. So, naalala ko pa dati, I was very, very young. I would, my mother used to work in NEDA for a brief moment. They were doing computer training, as in how to boot up a machine, load the OS, yung DOS pa noong time na yon, and then run the word star prompt, and then type and then print. That's basics for everyone. And then now it's second nature, I mean, if you don't use a laptop man lang, then wala, no? Hirap. And then nung nagka-internet, nagkaroon din ng similar wave. Medyo na tayo nun, may edad na tayo nun. But people were being coached on, this is what an email does. This is where you can search on Yahoo and Lycos and Alta Vista. Hindi pa nga sikat si Google. and this is Web 1.0. Wala pa yung Web 2.0 na parang web app driven, Facebook, YouTube. So literally blogs, GeoCities, yung mga Angel Fire era, no?
Oh,
And actually, nagkaroon na ng medyo stratification there. There were people who just used the internet, and there were people who were building the internet. Meaning, I'll create a website, create a blog, something like that. And then ngayon, we're AI na, where parang, everyone knows how to use a computer, but they're using it practically as a manual parang device. Whereas you can use analytics and then eventually AI to automate, give insight, something that will take humans forever to do, ginagawa na yung AI. I don't know kung dyan tayo na medyo na naiipit sa bottleneck. Kasi humans can do a decent job naman on their own without AI, and for most companies that's enough, no? They'll make money on that. So there is no clear and present danger na if I only use humans for, brain work, talo na yung company ko. Unless some new, parang disruptor comes in. Parang nung nagkaroon ng Uber, natakot lahat ng taxi. Kasi nga, actually hindi sila natakot nung una. Natakot sila later when taxis were suddenly out of a job. No one was riding a taxi anymore because I'm gonna get my Uber X or my Uber Black. Then nagkaroon ng backlash na ano ba yan? No, what's happening there? It's all AI driven, it's app driven, it's platform driven. And then it took the concerted effort of the government to stop it. True. So, ultimate, parang response, government na yung, yung mag-stop. So, I don't know, thinking out loud. Everyone says it's exponential, pero it seems to be taking longer than I thought. Yung pakiramdam ko.
Well, I think ang bilis din naman kasi nung pagbago ng technology. I mean, we've known AI, has been there since the 50s, di ba? And then suddenly, biglang nagkaroon ng generative AI nung November. So everyone was now generating new courses on prompt engineering bigla because that's suddenly the in thing. So what's next? Anong gugulatin na naman ba tayo by something else? So one of the things na kailangan isipin when we're developing this mga competency frameworks is how should we be flexible enough para it's going to be adaptive for skills that we haven't even for skills that have not been even invented yet, di ba? So do we go back to the very very core like yung diskarte, di ba? Critical thinking. Are we going to go down parang ganon ka
pero that's not easy rin, the core critical thinking, parang arguably not many people have that, pero
parang paano mo ituturo yung critical thinking? Paano mo ituturo yung diskarte, di ba? Kasi parang ngayon din naman ganun ang kailangan mo there are some na ang bilis nag-jump sa bandwagon on all of these LLMs and generative AI, and they generated all of the courses na parang nung inisip ko, di ba simpleng bagay lang ang prompt engineering? It's a matter of putting in the right
sentences,
keywords, di ba? And how you communicate.
Apparently not.
Apparently yun, correct. Apparently not. So hindi lang ganun kasimple ang prompt engineering. Kasi,
arguably nga, and this is mind-blowing for me then it is English. It actually is a programming language of its own. Parang correct. Ganun. And people don't realize that. No?
So it goes beyond, kasi nagpo-programming tayo, ang foundation natin is logic formulation.
Sure.
Pero prompt engineering is different. It's not even logic formulation anymore. It's not even just proper grammar skills.
It actually adds new things. We were talking about a researcher, diba, earlier, and he was working on using parang psychoanalytical frameworks with an LLM. And there's, for example, prompts that involve personality. Like, you are a politician. Sabihin mo sa kanya, you are a politician. Talk like a politician. This is the problem. And then, adapt niya yung persona. That's really advanced stuff that would be very hard to code if you think about it. It's very hard to code that. Pero the models get it, no? Yun yung nakakabighani.
So yung mga question nga ba natin, so ano yung competencies na tuturan natin? Bababa na tayo sa philosophical level. Di ba? Para, kailangan kasi talaga adaptive tayo. We need to be very, very ready on what the future is going to throw us. So, even nga, like for example, yung professional maturity model, sabi natin, outdated na yan. We need to look into that. It's like, several of the, sabi natin yung mga undergraduate programs, yung mga CHED memorandum orders. We had analytics back then in 2013. Super outdated na yan. So, when we release something like the skills framework this year, gaano natin kadalas dapat i-refresh yan? Diba? And it's not easy refreshing that also kasi it's going to take resources and definitely money to do that. Pero we need to be very din talaga agile in updating whatever we're going to create this year.
Okay. sige, you talked about skills, talked about roles. Actually, hindi pa tayo tapos doon, no? There was this very recent, and everyone's still talking about it, Washington Post article. And I actually interviewed a few people about that on digital freelancing. Okay.
Right.
Actually, when I started digging into it, ang medyo malawak pala siya. So anyway, the contention was this remote tasking or crowd working skill, parang role where you have data annotators, data labelers. So naalala ko kasi dati when we had our parang PMM, we had data stewards.
Right.
Kind of as the starting position. Parang this kind of falls before that pa nga, parang data supplier. Although you could argue it's a form of stewardship. Basically, people labeling images or editing text that will be eventually fed to a large language model, and that's what makes AI smart. So there's three angles to this now. I want to get your opinion. First angle is, as much as we'd like to see AI automating stuff, apparently it still relies on human labor din pala.
Right.
Point number one. So this is actually my best worst defense about this whole fear of job loss. Actually, hindi. There will be jobs created. However, yung tanong is what kind of jobs. Yes. Second, apparently, despite the demand, kasi I kind of the old school parang framework ko dito is if there's high demand, then it should be expensive. For some reason, these guys are underpaid, maltreated, whatnot. I don't know if it's early days lang kasi kokonti pa lang yung nagre-recruit. It begs an industry to step in, like a BPO industry to professionalize it. And then the third, this is where it probably will need further reflection. The skills you need aren't necessarily the APEC and the PMM stuff, no? Hindi naman din siya blue collar. It sounds blue collar, but no, it's not. It's actually it requires brain work. Like to get a picture of a cat that's a particular breed and ganyan. To label that, you probably know how to Google and understand what those things are. So there is a level of competency for sure. And that now sits at the base of this parang labor ladder na ngayon. Kasi ngayon, we've been looking at the top engineers, scientists, analysts, leaders. Pero ito parang ito yung masa. And
yes.
Well, I don't know, but if the figures are right, no, people are debating on the high end, there's 2 million of them. That's double the BPO industry. On the low end, there's at least 100,000, maybe 10,000 for a particular company. Certainly not zero. Marami. What could we do about that? Or is that part of our agenda in terms of skills? Anyway, just thinking out loud lang.
I think iba din kasi yung tingin natin when we said data and AI for the masses. I mean, we've been talking about that. We're training actually data and AI citizens, kumbaga, users of data and AI. I think that was really just our initial thinking. Kasi di ba, we're talking about digital divide then. Yung digital divide, it starts with, internet access pa lang. And then suddenly you have all of these digital skills that further exacerbates yung divide na yun. Diba? The availability of mobile or yung competency mo in using smartphones, lumalawak yan. And then suddenly you have now these AI tools na lalo nagpapalawak. So we said, okay, sige, let's train naman, let's do data and AI 101 para the masses would know how to use data and AI. Pero iba to itong sa Washington Post article, it's really, and yung labeling, like you said, data annotators to, which in truth naman, at least I think in this I would say early stages, AI still relies naman talaga for humans to train it, di ba? So that's why it's kind of, di ba, machine learning. So and AI will really be needing us to train that. So
for sure,
kailangan ng mga ganong competencies. But I'm also wondering, parang, you mentioned kasi, Doc, na parang there's a level of competency. Do you really need a kind of a competency to say na, eto, picture naman talaga ng pusa to. Diba? I think there's different complexity. Na, kalimbawa, if you're identifying pictures, so, pwede mo nang malaman, this is the pyramids, this is a waterfall, diba? This is a picture of a train versus a picture of a bus. So pag may mga ganun, I think that's medyo low level competency. But then if you look at may flavor na ng business domain yan, if you're looking say for a balance sheet, 'di ba? I-analyze mo 'yon. Pag nakita mong itong column na to, it's about liability. So dapat may alam ka na when you encounter this, alam mo ibig sabihin ng liability versus an asset. Now that's a different level of competency na when compared to annotating a picture of familiar items. Di ba? So ang worry ko lang dito kasi, I think it was tagged also sweatshops.
That's my fault actually.
Oh, yun. Well, pero kasi parang ganun yung nangyayari na parang they are underpaid, 'di ba? They are parang wala siyang pagkakaiba dun sa mga anong tawag doon, yung mga farms na sa social media nagla-like lang, 'di ba?
Influencer farm,
Ganun,
click farm.
influencer farm, mga
Oo.
click farms.
Eh, yun na nga, parang maybe yun yung
Oo.
pinaka-low level, the click
Yes,
farm.
yes.
Pretty much
Oo.
just press a button.
Right.
And then on the next level up, you have basically the BPO sector. Maybe the closest is transcription, content moderation. Yun,
Yan,
need to use your brain.
Yes.
And then you have this, which is annotation labeling. So I'm just saying, if we want to really be holistic, we might want to look at the skills framework as a whole. Kasi in
Correct.
terms of the numbers, certainly mas maraming nagtatag kaysa sa nagmagawa ng
Yes.
Excel, no? And I'm feeling, well, anyway, I'm not saying AAP jumps into it or wherever, pero I feel na yan na yung nabubuong job creation and we're not looking at it. Whereas with the areas where we are looking at has its own parang ano rin, dysfunction, which is this glut of junior workers na hindi na-absorb. So there's leaks on both sides. And right now, I don't know if anyone else is equipped or looking at it. And I feel na that will fall through the cracks eventually if we're not careful.
That's good idea, Doc. Kasi what we also want to provide naman is a career path that you can move along career path. I think it would be good, sige, tingnan natin. Like for example, like yung idea lang ng even a data entry clerk, di ba? Or a medical transcriptionist. Pwede nating tingnan, say in healthcare information, ano naging career path ng mga medical transcriptionists? How did they actually move into that career path, within health information management systems? Kasi baka yun, pwede nating gawing i-pattern after doon. Itong mga data annotators, potentially actually yung career path nila nandun sa functional analyst or sa papuntang data stewardship. Kasi yung kung ang experience nila talaga, expertise nila is on the domain, o dapat dun sila nababagay din talaga.
Yeah, and then ano rin, and sorry to belabor the point too much, who will look at labor protection? That seems conveniently outside our scope, no? Pero kunyari, contracts, unions, mga ganyan. Or if there's a dispute on pay, parang ganun, watchdog.
Right.
It feels like it's conveniently outside everyone's radar. Like pag tinanong mo yung DTI, we're only for consumers. Consumer ba yung mga yan? Pag tinanong mo si Dole, we're only looking at employment. Employees ba ang mga yan? No. So parang everywhere else, parang nothing. At worst, probably it's a criminal issue and you go to PNP, NBI. And then even they will wonder, so what's the problem here? Is this labor code or is this civil code?
Pero Doc, ang problema dyan kasi is, ito, so may assignment tayo to talk to the Philippine Statistics Authority and the National Statistician.
PSA.
Kasi kailangan i-update yung occupational codes.
Oh yeah, it's a data
Kasi
problem.
yung occupational codes, yun ang mag-feed into DOLE, into DTI. Kasi hanggat hindi natin nakakategorize ng tama yung mga bagong roles,
no one will look at it.
No one will look at it. Kasi parang, wala naman to saan natin sa occupational code natin So saan mo siya ibabangga?
Yeah.
Hindi malalaman ng DOLE kung anong titinan nila yan. So yun, actually I think part ng assignment ng once you define itong mga skills, competencies na to and you identify the career path. So even yung mga data annotators na yan, kailangan ma-update yung occupational codes natin to include them na.
Well, obviously that pag data naman, that's our remit. We can certainly suggest. Tapos if we're also going to be the industry board sa TESDA, diba?
Yes.
Then pwedeng lahatin na natin. Pero yun na nga, I feel that I mean, I myself am struggling with that, no? Kasi once you get into that, parang that strata of employment, that's dangerously close na to the abusive occupation.
True.
Diba?
True.
And yun na nga, we obviously need to suit up if we need to go that route, no? Medyo ibang territory siya, no? And it's a very legal territory rin. We need to have some legal, ano. Okay, sige. Just conscious of the hour, no? Although I'm enjoying this conversation a lot. Can you just update maybe our viewers on some practical areas where they can get involved? Because I know, for example, AAP needs help with evaluating the framework. We open that to members, pero baka there are other people who want to raise their hands, no? And any other initiatives that you're doing that you want to broadcast.
Yeah, so we're in the process talaga of developing this Philippine Skills Framework on analytics and AI. And we actually need people who's going to validate that. And while we say na, sige, kailangan natin ng mga experts who have really experienced, the skills, they have experience managing people. We actually need people who have gone through mga performance management cycles in their organizations, kasi kailangan alam mo yung pag-progress eh. So, kailan mo ipopromote yung isang data engineer to say a data designer or to a data architect. So, alam nung mga may experience na ng performance management, ano expectations pag for every rung ng career ladder na yon. So, while we may need experts, we also need yung experience naman ngayon ng mga nag-upskill, mga baguhan talaga on analytics and AI na parang ito yung tinuturo sa inyo ngayon. And yet, like you said, Doc, diba? Hindi naman ako nakakuha ng trabaho. So, ang goal kasi ng Philippine Skills Framework is ima-match natin sa qualifications framework na starting from actually grade 12, the Philippine Skills Framework should be able to tell you na pag ito yung competency mo na achieve mo na, kahit grade 12 graduate ka pa lang, employable ka na dapat. So we need yung help ng mga nag-upskill, I mean even the new ones who are into analytics and AI to tell us, okay, so ano yung hinahanap pala ng mga companies as an entry level. Kasi kung halimbawang ma-identify yon, then we need to put that in our the entry level competencies na kinakailangan. And I feel na it's going to go beyond the technical skills. So which also means na kung ano man tinuturo ngayon ng mga training providers, kulang. Diba? So,
for sure.
We need to quickly add kung ano man yung kailangan talaga ng mga companies.
What I've realized immediately is there's actually also a glut of training providers who are teaching the same things, and many of those things pa nga libre na nga eh. So ang tanong na lang sa'yo is if you want a guided instruction or a self-paced instruction, depende. And of course the ask is always, can I get a certificate? Fine, no? Dami ng mga certificate providers out there, various levels of credibility. Pero it's a bittersweet talaga when you have I know someone who has 100 certificates. Pretty much every online course kinuha na nga niya. Hindi pa siya makakuha ng work.
Right.
No? Sabi ko, kahit itambak mo lahat ng certificates na yan, actually after the first certificate, parang the utility of the second and onwards, parang minimal na lang. You just have to at least show that you've undergone some form of training, whatever it is. Pero yung actual value talaga is, what they say is, you need to show what you've done, portfolio, you need to show your, samples of your work. And that's hard, no? It's hard to find, no? And short of a mentorship or an internship, hindi talaga siya na-address. I think, hindi siya na-address. And I don't know if AAP is in that space we want to do that.
Tingnan natin on how we're going to do that. Kasi I mean, there are several mechanisms in place I think that we could use. Like, for example, okay, sige, we're going to work with DTI-DICT to come up with this competency framework. And we know that, we already have the buy-in of TESDA, CHED, and DepEd to use this. Kasi, so apparently there's an agreement na naman across all of these agencies na gagamitin talaga ang Philippine Skills Framework. There is now, so good news pala to, na there's now a credit transfer system na. na agreement between CHED and TESDA such that if you acquire this particular qualification level sa TESDA, it can be credited to a higher education program. So tingnan natin, we haven't really seen how's that going to work. So actually beyond yung role natin in AAP just to come up with a competency framework is to kind of make sense yung mga certification na yan.
Yeah.
Kasi I think what we plan to do is, okay, so kayong mga training providers ngayon, you'll probably have to make sure na naka-align yung mga learning outcomes niyo dito and even to the qualifications framework ng TESDA. I'm not sure if TESDA is going to regulate the training providers. I don't know. Mukhang kailangan may mag-regulate, di ba?
Or at least there should be a mechanism to complain. And maybe you can kaya nga I feel AAP is in a weird spot kasi we could be registering a lot of these people without necessarily parang vetting their content kasi hindi naman din yung point of the membership. Be a member if you want to and join our band, no? But if you want to register as a training provider, parang AAP accredited training provider, sometimes kasi yun na paghahalo. I think we need to be a bit more careful. Hindi, diyan tayo madadali. No?
Correct, right. I mean, we could do that kasi wala naman din tayong tao to vet
do the betting. That's actually
and then after that, di ba, policing naman nun. So hopefully TESDA will take the responsibility on that. But yeah, definitely, I mean, it can start with the Philippine Skills Framework if implemented properly. Di ba?
Or there should be a Philippine Skills Authority of some sort.
There should be. Australia has that.
Parang sa ISO, di ba? You can get an audit, an ISO audit.
In Australia, they have skills ministers actually na parang talagang tumitingin and they actually work together. Kasi like for example, when you look at supply chain and logistics, may IT skills yon. So dapat consistent tayo with all of the skills framework that we're going to do across all of the industries. Kaya medyo maganda yung model ng Australia kasi talagang they have ito yung job skills Australia. Ang focus talaga nila is on those just two things. Ito yung jobs, ano yung skills, and then the rest of the country looks into that. O kailangan mo magtuturo ka, anong career path yan, yung learning outcomes, dito mo kunin.
Yeah.
So may checklist siya talaga ng anong ituturo mo.
Yep. Well, again, we're writing our job descriptions as we speak, no?
Yes.
Eventually, it's going to say, kayong dalawa, pinag-usapan niyo yan. You guys might as well do it. So,
go lang, sige.
Diba? Hindi naman tayo uurong dyan
Yes.
Okay, sige. Obviously, we need to save some for the next episode. I don't think we've really scratched the surface on this, but certainly skills is at the core of this parang era, transformative era nga. Parang my favorite example is horses to cars, no? It didn't matter how well you were with the horse. Nung nagkotse na lahat, useless ka na. And it can be that jarring. Within 10 years, wipe out yung carriages, no? It became automated. Automated carriages basically. So ganun din ang ang ina-anticipate kong change. It was similar din yata yung personal computing. Within a 10-year period, suddenly everyone was using a computer. And then yung internet then, I remember where there were some holdouts. I'm never going online. It's unsafe or it's unreliable. Mahal pa yung internet package. And then within 10 years, poof, lahat nandyan na. So the adoption curves can be quite quick and people never learn. I guess we're fortunate enough to be at least old enough to see at least 2 or 3 adoption curves. So ang tanong na lang is, itong AI adoption curve, it feels parang I think a lot of people feel na wala pa yan, it's gonna happen later, and then later it's a brutal thing.
Too late na.
And then we're the ano bang tawag sa atin? Cassandras. We're the Cassandras. we're the ones who see the future but no one believes us. Parang ganun dating, no? Yun yung pakiramdam ko. Sige, takeaways. Let's close it off there here, I think. And what do you want to leave with the audience? And yeah, we should save some for the next chat.
So I think this is for us. I mean, the discussion, this is for everyone. Skills and competencies. In truth, tayo namang mga data and AI professionals ang magde-define. Like you said, tayo naman talaga dapat ang mag-define ng job roles natin, di ba? Kasi we should really have the expertise on this. It's like, you know, the organizations, the companies wouldn't really know what they want unless they really have the people to tell that. So this is really just an open invitation that, you know, when we start really working on the Philippine Skills Framework, that we get help from everyone, you know, regardless of experience level, industry, to work us to help us, you know, validate whatever we're going to work. And this is not going to be a document that's going to be cast in stone na parang version 1 and then that's it. Okay. There's definitely going to be enhancements to it. We need to be very adaptable to changes. So any input that, you know, anyone can provide to help ourselves, you know, that's definitely going to be very welcome for us.
Yeah.
I think yun lang, Doc. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's about as good a place as any to end it. I want to thank obviously Sherwin for lending us some time to share his busy schedule to I'm picking up a lot of what I would call parang gaps. Akala natin we had everything covered from the start.
Correct,
No?
correct.
Ngayon na tumubo na yung weeds, parang okay, dami palang iba pang gagawin. So yeah, thanks a lot, and I'm looking forward to having you again on a conversation.
All right, thank you very much, Doc.